Hello everybody and welcome to another top 10 video. This week I am actually doing a list that I thought was going to be super simple, and the further I got into it, the more I realized that this might be an impossible list. Today I am breaking down my top 10 unique cards, not including allies. And that was the original caveat, was I was not going to include allies. So we're still sticking with that. But what I also realized is that the player side schemes are also unique. And so we're also not going to include the player side schemes just because I feel like they represent something different and would have probably dominated half this list if I really sat down and thought about it, because I think that they are very powerful. And there's already 15 of the 70 cards that could be on here were a tight list. And so I apologize, because on a different day this list would look different. I promise you it would look different. But the basic rule here is that if it is a card that has that little unique star next to its name, it is viable. Except for, as I've already stated, no allies, no player side schemes. Everything else is fair game, and I just want to remind everybody that these lists are always my own opinions, and even I think that this list could be different in 24 hours. I have no question that could be very true, because this actually was a very tough list to put together. But I will not waste any more time. I've laid down the rules. Let's get directly into it, and let's talk about my number 10, which is Get Good, a 2-cost upgrade with the text of reduce the cost to play Get Good by 2 if you did not win your previous game of Marvel Champions, and a forced interrupt of when a player would be defeated, they set their hit dial to 1 and change alter ego form instead. Remove this card from the game. I wanted to represent as many aspects as I could, and looking at Get Good, I think it is a silly card. I think it is a card that sort of breaks the conventions of the game a little bit, because it's asking you to think about the last game you played and allows you to kind of meta the entire situation by being like, well, I technically lost an attempt this morning, so I guess we're good to go. But I just think it's such an interesting card. I think it's such a fun effect to basically make it so that one of the players at the table can be Deadpool. And I just think that's really cool. And overall, I just think it's a fun card. Again, it's tongue-in-cheek, no question. That's why it wasn't going to rank up too high on my list. That said, a bit of favoritism, but at the same time, I think it's a fun card. I think it's a card that if you have access to Pool in some respect, you should probably do it. But I think at that point, you're going to have to fully commit to Pool, because I don't know if there's a really good way to, well, I suppose like Spider-Woman. But I'm trying to think here, and I guess Adam Warlock, but most of the other ways you could do it that are like multi-aspect heroes don't have that option. Like Gamora doesn't, Cyclops doesn't, Cable doesn't. So yeah, I guess there are ways of doing this without having to fully commit to Pool. I think with the Spider-Woman rules, you still have to take the Crisis of Infinite Deadpools. The rule here is when you're playing Pool, when you're playing a Pool card, you want to try to avoid Crisis of Infinite Deadpools at all costs, because I actually think it's kind of a ridiculous card, and I don't see it. I don't see why that was needed. But moving on to my number 9, which is iPack, a 1-cost support with the Vehicle and X-Force trait, and the text of play only if your identity has the X-Force trait. Hero action, exhaust iPack, and deal 1 face-down encounter card to a player. That player draws 2 cards. So this is a card that if you play it with Star-Lord, which I'm getting ahead of you right now. I know you're already typing that comment, but you can't. Technically, if you are using a way to cheat in a support, like one of the player side schemes, build support, pretty simple. If you're playing with build support, you can actually go grab this without having to worry about the restriction, the build restriction or whatever, or the trait lock, and you can just get around it. So if you have the ability to, one, if you just don't care, if you just want to get that card advantage, which I do think this is a fair trade-off for card advantage, but I think that in like a Star-Lord deck where you just want as many face-down encounter cards in front of you as possible, this is just such a golden card, and I think it is just amazing. It does fall low on my list because I do think that while it is a card that I would happily put into a X-Force traded heroes deck, I do think that other applications are a little bit more hero specific. It's not always going to be great. I'll say that if I were in a situation where I knew I was playing with somebody who could reasonably take out build support, I would put this into a Thor deck just to get that extra card advantage, because I do think that he has a decent enough way to mitigate the face down encounter card One of those could be a minion, and that's going to put another enemy engaged with you. That's going to draw you more cards. Like, I do think there is an application there, but I do think that when you're looking at it, it's not just hero by hero, it's case by case, deck by deck basis as to whether this is going to really shine for you outside of X-Force. But I do think that at the end of the day, what it's capable of doing is just so much fun, and that's why it was able to make my top 10. Moving on to my number 8. This is definitely one where I'm playing a little bit of favoritism, I think. I don't have a sense that this card has a lot of positive reputation amongst the community, and that is the 2-cost support Moira McTaggart, who is well, obviously they're all unique, so I can skip over that particular fact, but it has the persona trait and play only if your identity has the mutant trait. That we can get around, but we're not going to need to, because the response is, after a mutant alter ego changes into hero form, exhaust Moira McTaggart, that player's controller draws 1 card. So you can try to get around this, and you technically could use build support to grab it, but it's not going to do you any good unless you're playing with other mutants. I think that Moira McTaggart is just such a fun card. I wish that it had been reprinted more. I think it got 1 reprint, so there's 2 printings of it within the 3 mutant waves. But overall, I just think this is such a fun card. I have it in Deadpool all the time because Deadpool's constantly going to alter ego and flipping back over for obvious reasons. But I think in other aspects, aspects is a loaded term. In other situations, in other respects, I think that Moira McTaggart is just a fun, basic card to have when you are, I suppose I didn't even need to say that in the last couple of cards. What is basic, what is aspect, but is a basic card. This can go into a lot of decks. I think that it is just a good card to have if you are a mutant. If you're playing with other mutants, it's just a good card to have. It's like having a cheaper Avengers Mansion. Obviously it doesn't have as many applications, it's a little bit more specific, but I think that for its cost, it's very, very good, and I'm happy to have it all the time, and that's why it makes my list. I think it's just a stellar card to have, and one that, again, I wish I got more reprints because I want it to be as readily available for people as possible. Moving on to my number 7, we have Champion's Mobile Bunker, a 2-cost support, basic, with the champion and vehicle traits. It has the hero action, exhaust Champion's Mobile Bunker, choose an identity with the champion trait. The player that controls that identity may draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards from their hand. This probably could have been lower on the list only because the champions are such a restricted trait. It just doesn't come up that often. But I do think that its power level is just so strong. I think it needs to beat out IPAC. I think that those two are very comparable, but I think that it is stronger than IPAC because it does not give you another encounter card. And the ability to draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards is pretty negligible. At that point, you're giving people card filtering, and that is so strong. And just overall, I think that it is one of those cards that if you're playing with the champion, this is a staple. You don't have a lot of applications for that, but like, you're going to do it. And if you can just get this out early enough that you are just getting that value back, you can look through your deck, you can look through other people can look through their decks if they are also champions. You got Nova and you got Ironheart playing at the same time, but it's just so strong, and it's hard to really get down to it, because I know that from a new player perspective, the idea of, well, I'm not, my hand's not getting any bigger, and that is important within our game. It is important to have as many cards in your hand as possible to pay for things. But it's deceptive because you're doing card filtering. You're able to look at more cards. You're able to find a better match. If you're looking specifically for certain resources, that can be important. And if you have requirements, which was something that was a part of the Sinister Motives wave, the requirements, that this can help you to find those requirements. Find a wild, find a specific physical, find a specific energy resource. And yeah, again, it's just so strong. I'm probably belaboring the point. But I just want to hammer through. This is a good card, and you want to play it. And yeah, it's a card that I definitely think about immediately as soon as I pull out a champion's identity to play with. Moving on to my number 6, we have the 1-cost support in basic, Weapon X, which has the location trait and play only if your identity has the mutant trait. Again, we can get around this so simple. Alter Ego action, exhaust Weapon X and take 1 damage. Discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard an identity-specific card, then add that card to your hand. This is, well, I'm happy this is trait locked because I feel like this could just be in every deck if you just allowed it to be. But this can be such a helpful card to have. I have used it in Domino a lot. I have used it in... Well, I suppose I probably used it in Star-Lord. I'm very greedy in Star-Lord constantly. I'm always giving myself as many options as possible. But I think that any hero that really lives and dies by its kit, where, like, you know, they say that Doctor Strange could be just 25 blank cards in his kit and he'd be fine. I think any hero that can very strongly work just off their kit, they don't really care about what else they're hitting, or they're able to recur cards. Usually kits kind of recur their own cards, but, you know, hypothetically, if you're working in a situation where cards going into your discard pile, it's not the end of the world because you can buy the important ones back. This can be so incredibly great to have. This does increase your hand size, and at the cost of 1 damage is not that much. Yes, you are tempting getting another encounter card, but I think that it is entirely reasonable to assume that if you are playing a little bit more recklessly, you're probably winning the game. Or you're losing the game very quickly. This progresses the game to the point where you are either winning or losing very quickly, and I think that that's important. But yeah, I just love Weapon X. I think it's a great card. The fact that it's a Ultra Ego action that doesn't care about your trait once it's in play is so powerful, so helpful. But let's move on to my number 5. Hello, if you are enjoying this content, if this happens to be the 3rd video of mine you've watched today, I would really love a subscription. It goes a long ways. Additionally, if you have discretionary spending, this is not required, but I do have members opened up. I want to make members only content. The demand's just not there yet. But they do get to see the videos as soon as they are live. That can be 24 hours notice. That can be a week and a half's notice, but you get that content right away. Any form of encouragement, any form of support is definitely appreciated. I won't take up any more of your time. Wow, it's been a while since we've had actual aspect card. So we're talking about Godslayer, a 3-cost upgrade. With the weapon trait, it is restricted and has the hero interrupt of when your hero makes a basic attack against a unique enemy, exhaust Godslayer, your hero gets +2 for that attack. I think it's because it's an older card. I think this card is so underrated. I never hear people talking about it. There's another card that was in my honorable mentions for this, so spoiler alert. Jarnbjorn is not making this list. I feel like this is probably taking the place of that. But this Jarnbjorn and Excelsior all kind of unify into one spot here. But I just love Godslayer. I think that it does so much good work. And I think that just the sheer fact of saying, if you're attacking a unique enemy, which there's a lot of them, at the cost of only exhausting this, you don't have to pay an energy, you don't have to pay a physical, you just get to do 2 additional damage. Now, the thing is that Jarnbjorn and Excelsior do require you to pay a resource, but you get to hit an enemy. I don't believe you have to hit a specific enemy, you just get to hit an enemy. So that does have its... It does have its advantages. There is a Wasp deck that I really love that uses hand cannons, and Godslayer can be a really good other restricted card. You give yourself that overkill damage, you get that +2, turn it into +4, and you're overkilling with Wasp, and then you have oh god, I forget what it's called, the card that gives you 1 additional damage when you do excessive damage, and yeah, Wasp can just snowball so quickly in that situation, and this is the key. I think this is the secret sauce to that strategy. Is all those other things are great and you're going to do really well, but I think the Godslayer just gives you that one really big turn that just blows everything out of the water. And then add to that, if you just have the ability to just take down a really difficult high HP minion, like with a Thor, he's already got +3. Or he's already at 3 because he's got Mjolnir. Give him Godslayer. Give him whatever, and give him a boost of any kind. Give him the precision strike or whatever it's called, the quick strike, whatever I don't remember what it's called now. But just you can build it to one big turn, take him out. Throw down a limitless stamina, bring him back. You don't get the Godslayer advantage when you go against the villain, but you know what? You've already taken down a really tough minion, and that's what's important. And yeah, at the end of the day, I just love Godslayer. I think it's such an underrated card, and I hope that I'm wrong in that aspect. I hope that a lot of people love it, and it's just not talked about enough. But I think it's just a stupendous card, and yeah, that's why it makes it into my top 5 here. Moving on to my number 4, and this I think is going to be pretty agreed upon as deserving to be here, and that is the 2-cost support out of basic, Utopia. It is a support with the location and X-Men traits. If each of your allies has the X-Men trait, increase your ally limit by 1, and then it has a response of, after an X-Men ally enters play, exhaust Utopia, ready 1 X-Men character. One, I don't ever think about the top text. Yes, I know I had to play it, or you don't have to play with just X-Men traded, but I don't think about the fact that my ally limit goes up by 1. That doesn't really come into play too often. When it does, it's great, but it's not something that I'm prioritizing. It's that ability to say, an X-Men ally came into play, let's ready up an X-Men character, whether that be Magic, whether that be Bishop, whether that be Iceman, or, whoever. This is just such a strong card, and I love it, and it's just great. And I think it's, I think this is universally understood to be a very good card. It's definitely one that I had to learn to love. I didn't respect it enough originally, but once I kind of got hooked into it, I was like, oh, this is just the bomb, and I love it. And yeah, that's why, pretty cut and dry, pretty simple why it's my number 4. Moving on to my number 3. I know this one was probably on people's short list when they heard the parameters of the list, and that is the 3-cost basic support Web of Life and Destiny, which has the location and Web Warrior trait, and the text, ignore this card's resource cost if your identity has the Web Warrior trait. After a Web Warrior ally leaves play, choose a player. That player draws 1 card. Card advantage is so powerful. This is such a strong card in my opinion, and I think that even if you're not playing with a Web Warrior, this can be good. The only thing is that so many of the Web Warrior allies need you to have a Web Warrior in play, which I guess this is a Web Warrior, but so many of them are so dictated on that you can't have this be your single pillar to build the rest of your Web Warrior allies off of. But obviously, if you are in a Web Warrior traded hero, this is such a strong card, and in combination with Spider-Man 2099 or the new Spider-Woman in Aggression, like this just takes all those things you were already doing during the Sinister Motives wave and just cranks it up to 11. This is great with the basic SPDR ally, Spider-Punk. This is great with just so many Web Warriors. This is such a great card to play with. It gives you that advantage. You don't need to exhaust it to take advantage of it. And it's leaving play. It's not even defeated. It's you bounced it back to your hand, and now it gets to do something. It's great with the basic Ghost Spider ally. And yeah, just overall, I think it's pretty unquestionable that this should have made the list. And yeah, it was easily my number 3. Moving on to my number 2, we have what I think is kind of a card that is emblematic of a series of cards, but that is the Pericles, which is kind of a stand-in for all of the Shield 6-cost supports. But I think it might be, in my opinion, it's the best of the ones we have. I think it's the most universally applicable. So it is a 6-cost support in protection, and it has the shield and vehicle traits as uses 2 supply counters, and the action of exhaust the Pericles and remove 1 supply counter from it. Give a hero or villain a status card of your choice. Give an ally or minion a status card of your choice. So obviously within Maria Hill, this just infinitely stun locks the entire game to some extent. You can always give a tough status to an ally. You can always stun or confuse the villain, whatever you need to do. Like, this is so applicable. Obviously, when it's just limited to its 2 uses, it is reined in, but I think that when you're playing it with Maria Hill, even if you are playing it and you're only getting the 2 uses out of it, you feel pretty good. You've put out 4 different status counters, and it's kind of hard to not feel like you really ran the gambit there. Like I said, this is very emblematic of all the shield vehicles. All of them are worthy of being within the discussion, but in my opinion, I think the Pericles is the best and is head and shoulders the most applicable to just a regular game of Marvel Champions. That said, I don't get the same use out of the leadership one. I know the aggression one is very popular, and I can absolutely see uses for the justice one, but yeah, the other ones are, on the shoulders of giants, because the Pericles is that giant, and I just absolutely love it. Real quick, let's just talk about some of my honorable mentions before we talk about my number 1, because even if we're not going to go into detail about them, I think that they do deserve a little bit of a spotlight, because like I said, this list was very, very contentious for me. And my honorable mentions being the Raft, the Stepford Cuckoos, Mission Leader, and Yarnbjorn. I think all of these have applicable uses. I think that they are very strong. I suppose Excelsior could be also included with Yarnbjorn, but I think that all these have a use, and I think that they are worth thinking about, and hopefully these are also cards that crossed your mind as things that should be on the list, and unfortunately they just did not make my list. But yes, let's move on to my number one, which I know is biased, absolutely biased, but it's my list and I'll do what I want to. And that is Hall of Heroes, a 2-cost support out of aggression. It has the Asgard and location traits, and the response: after you defeat a minion, place 1 glory counter here, alter ego action, exhaust Hall of Heroes, and remove 3 glory counters, draw 3 cards. I am a very avid aggression player. Obviously, I am very tied into Asgard. I love both Thor and Valkyrie, and these two can live and die by this card. But I think that even outside of those two, just setting them aside, I think that if you are an aggression, this is such a great way to accrue card advantage. Obviously, we've talked about other cards within this list itself that give you card advantage. But I think that this one is just so great in the fact that it's able to come down, it's able to let you be the aggression player, the one who is defeating minions. Obviously, at that point, you're prioritizing. You don't want to have other players nickel and diming away minions. You don't want to be setting them up for somebody else to have the layup. You want to be the one doing it, and that is a restriction, and that does dictate some of how you're going to be playing. But I do think that once you have that in line, once you are accruing these glory counters and turning them into extra card advantage, it just gives you these bombastic turns that are so powerful, so strong, and yeah, just put you miles ahead, and I just love it. And yeah, at the end of the day, Hall of Heroes is my favorite of these unique cards. Obviously, as I said before, allies were off the table. Player side schemes were off the table. I do plan to do a player side scheme list in the future because I do think that is a very viable list. Maybe not next week, but soon. But either way, that is my list. How do you like it? Let me know what is your favorite card that maybe I missed or maybe that you enjoyed off this list. But until next time, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. And remember, you're doing great. Keep it up.